Dr. Mara Voss slides a single hair onto the glass plate at 7:43 in the morning, and before she's even seated, she already knows this person had a bad October. The hair came in a standard evidence envelope from a civil court case, a custody dispute out of Wake County, North Carolina, and Voss doesn't know the name of the man it came from. She knows other things. She knows he started drinking heavily again around month 6 of the strand she's holding. She knows there was a significant cortisol spike in what would have been his February. She knows that around month 2, he was living somewhere with different tap water than where he'd been at month 8, because the strontium isotope ratios changed. She knows all of this because hair is the closest thing to a time capsule the human body makes without ever trying to. Here is the part most people don't know, and it's genuinely stranger than it sounds. Hair is dead the instant it clears the scalp. The shaft is compacted keratin, the same structural protein in a rhinoceros horn, in your fingernails, in the outer layer of a bird's beak, sealed and inert the moment it emerges. No nerves run through it. No circulation reaches it. You cannot feed it from the outside, cannot heal it, cannot change what's already in there. Split ends are permanent. Bleach damage is permanent. Whatever was incorporated into the shaft when it was forming is sealed inside for as long as the strand survives. The cells that made it are dead. The record they left is not. Because before it's out, the follicle is very much alive, pulling materials from your bloodstream to build each new millimeter. Every substance circulating in your blood, cortisol, alcohol metabolites, prescription drugs, heavy metals, the strontium and oxygen isotopes of the specific water supply you're drinking. Some fraction of each gets incorporated into the keratin matrix as it forms, 1 millimeter at a time, roughly 11 millimeters per month. Then pushed out, sealed, and replaced by the next. A strand of hair 12 centimeters long is approximately 12 months of your body's internal correspondence, encoded in a medium no one can read with their eyes. The average person is carrying somewhere between 2 and 7 years of this record at any given time. Dozens of strands, each a different length, each time-stamped to a different month, each a layer of the same standing archive. You walk through the world wearing a document you have never been given access to. With a technique called segmental hair analysis, forensic laboratories cut a single strand into monthly sections, each barely 2 millimeters, dissolve each segment, and run it through a mass spectrometer. What comes back is a timeline. Month by month, from root to tip, reading backward through time. The language is cortisol and creatinine, ethyl glucuronide markers for alcohol metabolism, delta-9 THC and its breakdown products, isotope profiles that shift when someone moves cities and starts drinking different water. Each variable has an established normal range. Deviations register as events. Voss has been doing this for 11 years. She keeps a small magnification loop on a chain around her neck, not because she needs it at her desk, where she has a proper scope, but because at some early point in her career, the habit of looking closer became something she couldn't turn off. She eats lunch at her desk. She has testified in 46 trials. She's learned more about some people from their hair than their attorneys ever knew. The custody case hair belongs to a man in his early 40s. By the time she finishes her analysis, she has a more precise picture of his autumn than he probably does. The cortisol spike around February aligns with something significant: a job loss, a diagnosis, a sustained period of fear. She'll never know which. Chemistry doesn't record the cause, only the body's response to it. The response was metabolized into protein, and the protein grew through his scalp at 1.1 centimeters a month, and he combed it every morning, without knowing he was wearing the evidence of the worst weeks of that year. Now consider what happened to Napoleon Bonaparte. The conventional account. He died of stomach cancer on the island of St. Helena in May 1821, 51 years old, having spent the last 6 years of his life in damp British captivity on a volcanic island in the South Atlantic. Fatigue, nausea, weakness in his legs. The physicians recorded what they could see. In 1960, a Scottish forensic scientist named Hamilton Smith obtained a lock of Napoleon's hair, preserved, as was common practice for notable figures of the era, by attendants who cut small keepsake locks in the days around death, and subjected it to neutron activation analysis, a technique sensitive enough to detect elements at concentrations measured in parts per billion. The arsenic concentration in the hair was 38 times the accepted normal background level. Not elevated, not a statistical anomaly requiring a footnote. 38 times. The explanation has never fully settled. Some researchers point to the wallpaper in Napoleon's rooms on St. Helena. A fashionable pigment of the period called Sheila's green was made with copper arsenite, and in sustained humidity it could off-gas arsenic vapor continuously. Others have suspected deliberate poisoning by any of several people with both motive and proximity. A few argue that chronic arsenic exposure was simply endemic to early 19th century material life, turning up in medicines, dyes, and wood preservatives, and that analyses of hair from other people of the same era have found elevated levels broadly enough to suggest an entire century's ambient chemistry, rather than a specific hand. Napoleon knew something was wrong. He documented the fatigue, wrote about the weakness, tried to account for why his body was failing him. He did not know he was growing a monthly record of his decline, sealed into keratin, traveling outward at 1.1 centimeters per month. His body dissolved into the ground of St. Helena. The hair, kept dry inside a folded paper in a sealed case, was still legible in 1960, still carrying the months, still answering questions the people in the room at the time had never thought to ask. Back in Raleigh, Voss submits the custody report at 10:15. She has never met the man. She won't learn how the case ends, whether the court weighed her findings, whether the children moved, whether February was as bad as the chemistry suggested, or worse. What she gave the judge was a legible version of something the man had experienced only as a feeling, probably a feeling he'd already begun to revise in memory. A bad winter, a period he'd prefer not to revisit. Voss handed the court the version his body kept while he was busy living through it and not yet knowing what to call it. This is what the mirror doesn't show. The surface of your hair is yours to arrange. You can spend half an hour on it each morning, grow it for 2 years, dye it, cut it on a Wednesday because you need to feel like someone slightly different. All of that is real. The presentation is genuinely yours. But the strand you've been growing since last winter contains last winter, not a metaphor of it. The actual chemistry, sealed inside keratin, growing outward. Whatever was happening in your body during those weeks, it's in there. The argument that sat in your chest and didn't resolve. The month your sleep broke. The season something was changing before you had language for what it was. Encoded 1.1 centimeters at a time, in a material that can't feel anything and keeps everything. When people cut their hair, they often say they feel lighter, newer, like something gone. What's gone is always the oldest record, the furthest chapters, the most distant past. What grows back begins from today, today's blood supply, today's cortisol, the water currently moving through you. Whatever this month is, it is already in there. Voss is not a philosophical person by self-description. She works with mass spectrometry and chain of custody documentation and expert witness preparation. But she has spent 11 years reading the record people carry without knowing they're carrying it. And she has developed a particular stillness about the distance between what identity looks like and what it contains. She picks up the loop from her desk and holds it for a moment, not looking through it, just its weight. In the custody case, the man had his bad October. He had his February. Each morning of both, he stood in front of a mirror and arranged his hair into whatever shape felt right for the day, composed himself, chose a version to present, stepped out into the world with that version forward. The hair held both stories simultaneously, the one he was presenting and the one he was actually living through, sealed together inside the same shaft, inseparable, leaving the building every morning in exactly the same direction. He just couldn't see them both at once.